Bekius program. Today we're doing Moed Katan. Today's daf includes 4 main points. The first one is about someone joining other mourners and starting Shiva together with them. If you have someone who is a junior mourner, we're going to describe more about that. He can join on the Shiva as long as he comes from a close place, and according to the first opinion, has to come within the first 30 days. According to Rabbi Shimon, it doesn't matter when he comes, he can still join with them. Then we're going to discuss that could the junior mourner join the family for their Shiva if the senior mourner is away? And generally the answer is no, is yes, he can join as long as the senior mourner is going to return within 3 days. And then we'll mention that Shiva begins from when everybody is finished with the burial or returning back to their house if they didn't go to the burial. And then we'll just begin to describe difference between the mourning and burial between parents and other relatives, that we take a long time for the burial, that we don't work during the Shiva, and that a person is supposed to bear their shoulder during the burial. A mourner who comes in the first 3 days, he's going to count Shiva together with them. The idea here is that if somebody's away from the family, doesn't realize that there was a death in the family, and then joins with the rest of the family after they've already begun Shiva, he can continue Shiva together with them. Even though he missed the first 1 or 2 or 3 days, he can start wherever they're up to and only keep the rest of the days, and that's considered Shiva. He doesn't need to count from the beginning a personal 7 days. It's good enough to count Shiva together with them. We're going to introduce this idea that Makom Karo versus Makom Rachok. If he's close versus far, Tosfos says that means within a 1 day's distance is considered close. If he's further than that, well, then we'll talk about it. Maybe he can't join. And we're also going to mention a Gadol Habaya, someone who is a senior of the house, someone who takes care of the burial and everything else like that. That person who is totally responsible, he is the one who establishes where the ship is going to be, and someone else could join on with him. However, someone just a minor or junior party of the family, they're not going to establish when the ship is, and you can't join on with them to gain their counting of the ship. So the Brisa began that a mourner who comes within the first 3 days from a close place, 1 day's distance, Mona Imahan, he could join the family and count whatever they're up to in the Shiva. But Makom Rachok, if it comes far away, Monim Alatzma, if he comes from far away, then he has to have his new Shiva. He starts from wherever he found out about the death. If he comes after 3 days, also, it doesn't matter where he came from, he's always going to count for himself. Rabbi Shimon says, all I care about is whether he came from close or far. If he came even on the 7th day, if he came from a close place, he could join them. Amar Mar, the Brisa told us, if the person comes within the first 3 days, he could join with them. A qualification Rabbi Yochanan gives us about the Brisa is that they have to have a senior person of the family at home. They raise the question, what would be if the senior person of the family is not around when the other person comes in? Is he able to join then? Tashma, let's hear a proof. The Rabbi Yochanan says it doesn't matter whether the Gadol Habaya is there or not. Everybody could join in. Beautiful. However, the Gemara questions this. Rabbi Yochanan, you're telling me that he could join, but I thought we said in the Brisa you can't join if the senior mourner is not around. It's too bad. Can't join. Says the Gemara, look, and as long as he came within 3 days, then you can join. If the senior mourner didn't come back from the cemetery or somewhere else within 3 days, then the other person can join, and he would have to have his own serva, his own counting of 7 days. Rab told the people of Salponi this idea. If the senior person in the house comes within 3 days, then the junior members who join could count with them. If they don't come within 3 days, well, then they're on their own. Rabbi says to the people of Mechoza, those people that are not going to go, they're not going to go follow the coffin to its burial. You're going to stay where you are. Rashi explains it in Bavel. You're not going all the way to Israel, to the burial procession. It doesn't matter. You won't start Shiva after the burial, like someone who goes to the burial. However, you'll start Shiva when you turn your face away from the burial procession at the gate, at the gate of the city, or at the outskirts of the city, and you're turning to go back home. That's when you begin your Shiva. Rabbi Shimon Omer, and this is the brisa that we quoted before. The Rishon says you could join even on the seventh day. Even if it's on the seventh day, you can only join as long as the comforter is still there. That's considered within the seventh day. What happens if the comforters are getting up? They're on their way out. They're ready to go. That's a question unresolved. Gemiri Chavre de Rabbi Abba Barchia mi Rabbi Abba. The friend Rabbi Abba learned from Rabbi Abba. And who was this friend? Rabbi Zera. So Rabbi Zera learned from Rabbi Abba. Or another version the opposite way. Amri Lei, some say Chavre de Rabbi Zera mi Rabbi Zera man Rabbi Abba. The friend Rabbi Zera learned from Rabbi Zera. Who is that? Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba, the son of Rabbi Abba. So either way, we're learning something from Rabbi Zera or Rabbi Abba. The following. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Allah Rabbi Shimon Gamliel b'Triva, Allah Rabbi Shimon b'Avel. We follow Rabbi Shimon's opinion by Avel, so we discussed that you can join even on the seventh day, and we're also going to follow Rashbag's opinion when it comes to Trefos. Rabbi Shimon b'Avel Hadamar, when we talked already about Rabbi Shimon's opinion by Avel, what about Rashbag b'Trefos? Dinan, it says in the Mishnah, if there is a hole in the intestines that usually makes the animal trefa that it's not going to live and it'll be not kosher. However, if there is liquid inside that closes it, the animal becomes kosher, it's not a treif. What is this liquid? This is some of the juices, internal intestines, that comes out with pressure under. That's enough to close the hole, and that would make the animal kosher. Amar mand dehu izki ve'isik ve'agmar l'shmeitim v'pume demare. They said, Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Zer, who is it that's going to be zocha, to merit, to be able to go up and learn this statement of Torah from the originator, the one who actually taught it originally? So once they went up to Eretz Yisrael, they found that Rabbi Chia Bar Abba was teaching Torah. Amar Mar Halacha Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. They asked him, did you in fact tell us that we found halacha Rabbi Shimon Gamliel by Trefos? Amri, ein halacha. Ana ein halacha. Amri. I in fact said the opposite, that we don't follow Rabbi Shimon Gamliel by Trefos. Kershimon ba'aval mai. What about by Avelos? Do we follow Rabbi Shimon about that? Amri pluktaninu. That is indeed a dispute between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan, and it's unclear what the halachas. Rav Chizda Amar halacha. Rav says we follow Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yochanan halacha. Rabbi Yochanan also says follow that opinion Rabbi Shimon. Rav Nachman are in halacha, and Rav Nachman says we don't follow Rabbi Shimon. Now the Gemara opposes its own resolution. Ein halacha Rabbi Shimon b'Trefos. Halacha Rabbi Shimon b'Avel. We don't follow Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's idea by Trefos that the liquid could fill up a hole. However, we do follow Rabbi Shimon by Avelus. Shmuel halacha d'vrei mekel ba'Avel. Here comes a brisa that explains the differences between a burial and shiva for a parent for other relatives. If someone tries to expedite the burial procession by any other relatives, that's praiseworthy. However, for a parent, that's considered disgraceful. Erev Shabbos or Erev Yantiv, if it's a short time because it's Shabbos or Yantiv is coming, then even for a parent, it's praiseworthy to push the burial forward. Because everybody understands that that's still for the honor of one's parent, that was the one who's doing this quickly. For most relatives, besides parents, you could decide to minimize in your work. Now, this means, obviously, work is always usher. However, it could be that we're discussing over here for a loss, like Taisus or for Rashi, because we're discussing schura, business transactions, and non-intent labor. Either way, that you can't do for a parent. You have to minimize the work. For other relatives, you don't, if you don't want to. Al kol medim kulun radza choles roteina choles alavimo choles. There used to be a minhag that during the burial, the mourner would bare his shoulder, tear his kriya, and then bare his shoulder to make it exposed. And for other elders, you don't have to bare your shoulder. For a parent, you do. Once there was a gadol dor whose father passed away, and he was ready to do the chalitza of his shoulder, bearing his shoulder. And there was another gadol dor right next to him who also wanted to do the same thing, to copy him, to express his emotional sadness and empathy, and he didn't do it. He stopped. One version is that the story was about Rebbe, and Rebbe's father died, and the gadol with him was Rabbi Yaakov. The other version is Rebbe, the friend was Rebbe. I understand the version that says the gadol hador that was with him was Rebbe, and whose father died was Rabbi Yaakov's father died. Because then we understand why Rebbe was going to express his emotions by taking the chalitza off his shoulder, to remove that clothing from his shoulder. Well, and then decided not to. That makes sense. That's why he decided not to. If the story was that Rebbe's father died and then Rabbi Yaakov was going to take off this clothing and didn't, well, then we don't understand. Rashpag Nasiu. The father Rebbe was Rashpag. Rashpag was a Nasi, was the prince, the head chief rabbi of Israel, and everybody is supposed to treat him with a lot of respect during the procession of burial. They're supposed to bear their shoulder, and therefore he shouldn't have been prevented from doing so. The words for this week are Mahu. What's the halacha? Ha, this. Bai, want or require or ask. Amar Mar, the master said. Ninhu, they. The last two words are also the same for the daf.